Namaste to all the participants. Think Guntur is hosting today's session on topic Insights from Mahabharata. The speaker is Sri Nilesh Nilakanth, who is from Massachusetts, US. Will take this session today. Before we start this session, I ask our team member Sri Raghavachari to introduce the organization. Mr. Raghavachari garu, please.
Namaste Nilesh ji and namaste to all participants. Think is an independent organization founded with intent to contribute to civilization rejuvenation by promoting critical thinking in the society, drawing on spiritual, cultural, social, political and economic thought of Bharatvarsha. Think will endeavor to promote analytical reflection at local, national and international levels. Think will endeavor to bring together important constitutions of the society such as political leaders, policy makers, academicians, journalists, religious leaders, and civil society activities to suggest recommendations to address issues confronting the nation as well as the international community.
Thank you, Raghavachari garu. Before we start today's session, I would like to give a few points about today's topic, that is Insights from Mahabharata. We all know that Mahabharata is the world's longest epic. The unique strength of Mahabharata is not its length, rather it is the longevity spread across thousands of years. Over thousands of years, many people have found sustenance and solace in this great Itihasa. The stories of Mahabharata are deeply rooted in the society of this great land of Bharatvarsha. There are stories within stories in Mahabharata which capture our attention. However, every character in Mahabharata raises fundamental moral questions which prompts us to ask as to how does Mahabharata insight apply to a specific field? How to identify astronomical events in the Mahabharata from the modern astronomical point of view? Time measurement in antiquity. Likewise, many more. Today we can get Mahabharata on online platforms, CDs, books, and other formats. And yet, many are finding it difficult to engage and digest the essence of Mahabharata. To help us understand this great itihas of this great land, we need people like Sri Nilesh Nilakanth. Sri Nilesh Nilakanth is an author, researcher, speaker, and corporate consultant. He holds BS, MS in Chemical Engineering, and an executive MBA. He has published 3 books and writes extensively on ancient Indian history. Sri Nilesh Nilakanth helps Indians become aware of the deep antiquity of Indian civilization so that they truly comprehend, present, or defend the grand narrative of India, unlike most other Indic researchers, because he builds it through scientific acumen and logical reasoning. He is adjunct faculty at the Institute of Advanced Sciences, Dartmouth, Massachusetts, USA. I ask Sri Nilesh Nilakanth to take this session. Thank you very much, Sri Nilesh. Welcome to start our session today. Thank you very much, sir.
Wherever you are around the world. And so thank you for joining. Some of you must be joining through different platforms such as Facebook and many other platforms. So thank you all for joining. What I will do, this is my plan. This is the menu for our session today. I will take around 45-50 minutes and present few aspects from the Mahabharata. The idea is to instigate your curiosity, okay, instigate the jidnyasa in you, instigate shraddha, okay, and also instigate samshay, because all of this is important for that creative thinking that the Guntur group referred to, and that should create a setup for you to ask questions. My request to all of you is to listen attentively, and then when it comes to question answer session, please stick to the specific subject or some of the few specific areas of Mahabharata that I would cover today. Okay, so if we can ask the questions related to that, what really it allows us, because eventually this talk would be on the YouTube and Facebook and whatnot. Facebook, it's already there. It allows me to use this particular presentation multiple times. So when somebody asks a question, and there are these frequently asked questions, I don't have to answer that question multiple times. I can just pick a link to this Think Guntur talk and just give it to that person, or simply ask that person to search through YouTube and go for that talk. The benefit of that is realize in our Hindu civilization, Indian civilization, Vedic civilization, we have very limited resources, okay, and we are fighting many nefarious forces. So we have to make use of our limited resources in the best possible way, okay, and that's why my request. So with that, I am going to actually start sharing a PowerPoint, so that that will go for, I mean, I'll go for 45-50 minutes or so. Okay, if you want to, please mute yourself, or the organizers would mute anyways. If you want to stop your videos also, sometime that may help with the bandwidth on your side. Okay, but it's up to you. With that, I'm going to start sharing. Okay, do I need access for sharing, or already have one? It's not, let's see.
It's not going, sir?
Okay. Yeah, you know, it will work. Yeah, just let me know when you see it. Do you see it?
Okay. No.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, so I think you need to, you know, you need to give me a access, or let's see. Okay, I'm a co-host, so I should able to share. Right. Okay. Please let me know when you see my slide.
Yes, it is okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. Insights from Mahabharata. Now, to get these insights, let's begin with the question, and this itself is a first insight from the Mahabharata. Do you have what it takes? When I say you, I mean any one of us, each one of us, all of us. And what we need, and that's what actually Mahabharata tells us, what we need is a combination, and we need a lot of other things, but a specific combination I'm going to talk about is that combination of a Shraddha, Samshaya, and Jidnyasa. And in the right way, in the right proportion. Okay, it's like an aeroplane, you know, when used in a proper way, it can take you very efficiently from one place to another place across the globe. But if you don't know how to fly that plane, then it's a disaster in waiting. The same thing actually applies to this combination, or each of these individual factors, Shraddha, Samshaya, Jidnyasa. They can be very useful, they can create revolutions, and they can create disasters. Okay, so let's see how to look at this. Now, this is a insight of a Mahabharata. Now, to briefly, if you look at our Indian Grantha, and I'm going to use the word that Rajiv Malhotra uses, you know, it's a ancient Indian narratives that kind of covers everything that is there in the Indian civilization. If you look at the Rigveda, now this is not, or Veda, this is not to say that these particular things only has this, but I am saying the emphasis of a Veda is on a dhyana. Like there are these ruchas, okay, that you recite, okay. The focus is on the dhyana. If you look at the Upanishad literature or Upanishads, the focus is on a jnana, on the knowledge. If you look at Ramayana, the emphasis, okay, there is everything in Ramayana, but the emphasis is on a niti vichar. If you look at Mahabharata, now what is it that Mahabharata does not have? So it's very daring to say that Mahabharata, the emphasis on certain thing, but I am going to say that the emphasis of Mahabharata is on the kriti, or is on the karma. And those of you who are familiar with Bhagavad Puran, for example, the focus is on the bhakti. And then the Bhagavad-Gita, which is part of Mahabharata, I would say the focus is on the Samyak Jnana. Okay, that's all you will hear throughout the Bhagavad-Gita. It makes a good integration of all that I just said. For example, dhyana, jnana, niti, karma, bhakti, all of those, it does, the Bhagavad-Gita does a nice integration. So Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata. So some of the insights would be together. But whatever is said in Bhagavad Gita is expanded as a thought in rest of the Mahabharata. Okay, so let's begin with Shraddha, Samshaya, and Vijnana. So if I plot this, okay, this helps us in our critical thinking as three different axes, and notice they are at 90 degrees, so they are orthogonal. They're kind of independent of each other. Okay, those of you there, the mathematicians and engineers and whatnot, okay, the scientists. I'm plotting Samshaya on the x-axis. Okay, where does it go? Okay, the Samshaya can be of a mind or Samshaya can be of a buddhi, and there is a huge difference. Okay, if we start with a Samshaya but don't get stuck into the Samshaya of a mind, that is the Samshayatma Vinashyati of Bhagavad-Gita, actually it can lead us to the acquisition of knowledge that can lead us to a satisfaction, Jnana Trupti. The other axis is axis of a Shraddha. And this gets a bad name, like Shraddha, Andhashraddha. Actually there is no difference there. Shraddha is simply a conviction, Nishtha you can call it as a practical word, okay? A reverence, okay? You have to have a Shraddha. When you take a aeroplane ride, okay, you don't get to see the pilot and co-pilot and their certification. They don't show the certification. You trust in that airline company, okay, right or wrong, but you trust, and you assume that the pilot knows how to fly that plane safely. The pilot knows how to reach the destination. That is Shraddha. When you are driving on the road, okay, and driving can be crazy, but you have that Shraddha. The person in front of you is not going to suddenly brake, on the car or the motorbike that he or she is riding. That's a Shraddha. Now, Shraddha has also a range, like Shraddha can be from Sattva to Tamas. In that, these are the words, again, we hear a lot of Sankhya in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Mahabharata. And that's so it matters what kind of Shraddha you have. Okay. And if you have a time in question answer, we'll talk about it. The third axis, and that Shraddha is this acceleration, it's giving that petrol, that gives us the Karma Shakti. Shraddha can accomplish a lot. I'm not talking whether it will, whatever they accomplish is good or bad, okay? That's why we need the buddhi and that's why we need the other aspects. But Shraddha is that propelling force, a driving force. That's a Karma Shakti. And the third one is the Jidnyasa, okay? Which is you want to know something that you don't know, okay? But Jidnyasa can also go across the Kutuhala to Saprayojan. Kutul means simply people want to know. I mean, I get these questions all the time. Can you tell me? Can you tell me this? Do you know this? Why don't you study? Well, that's a curiosity, great curiosity about me. But we need to turn that curiosity inward, meaning what am I, any individual is doing about it, okay? So it needs to be a prayojan. You just don't casually and carelessly ask a question. That's a jidnyasa. Now, if you look at Bhagwan Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, the three things he asks you to do, and you can see how they nicely map to this plot. He asks us to do Swadhyaya, okay, into his Yoga Sutra. He asks us to have that Ishvara Pranidhan, that is that Shraddha aspect, the Bhakti aspect, and then Tapasya, which is a Karma aspect. So there's a Jnana, Bhakti, and Karma, if you want to look at this. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita verses, where it says Samshayatma Vinashyati, if it's a Samshaya of a mind, it's going to lead to destruction, which usually starts how? Oh, I don't agree with that. I agree with that. I like this particular approach. I like this particular approach. I like this particular claim. I don't like this particular claim. I like this person. I don't like this person. It's not convincing enough. I'm not convinced. That is a mind. What the question we need to ask is, if that is a question, what is the evidence? Based on what you decided to agree with that view, based on what you decided to disagree with you. Okay. And our goal is to get towards that top right hand corner. We call it Abhyudaya. Okay. And some of the verses I'm going to pull from Bhagavad Gita and therefore from Mahabharata. Many of you would know this verse. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. I'm going to pull three words out of it. Pariprashna. Okay, so asking a question is a great thing. Okay, but you just don't stop there. Or the kind of question you ask is also very important. It better not be a careless and a casual question. You ask a question because you have done the study, you have comprehended the subject, and still there is something that's not, you have a struggle understanding. Just like in a school, we try, and then if we still don't know, we go and ask the teacher. Okay, so that's a pariprashna. Pranipata. If we are always doubtful about the person that we are listening to, we will never gain knowledge. If we are reading Mahabharata and we are doubtful about its authenticity, then better not read Mahabharata. Okay, so we have to have a initial shraddha. You can question it, of course, afterwards, and then so you have to do something. You have to turn this into action. Remember, Mahabharata is about the karma. It's about the action. Bhagavad Gita, whole philosophy, but those of mechanical engineers there think of as a continuum mechanics, right? The black box thinking. If nobody reads Bhagavad Gita, but what is the effect of Bhagavad Gita on Arjun? If you look at it, you will see that right at the beginning, Arjun has dropped his um, Dhanusha, Gandiva Dhanusha, and he says, I'm not fighting. And let's, for a minute, let's not think about what happens between Krishna and Arjun, between those 700 verses worth of philosophy, Tattvajnana, whatever their discussion is. But when you look at the end result out of that box there, called Bhagavad Gita, you see, okay, now Arjun is calm, relaxed. Now he picks up his Dhanusha and is ready to fight. Okay. So again, you see the emphasis at the end of it on a karma, okay, the action. That's very important. Shraddha is important, as I said. Okay. Now, if there's a lack of knowledge, lack of shraddha, and lack of samshaya or samshaya of a mind, that is that verse here, adnyascha ashraddhadhanascha samshayatma vinashyati. Okay, so if I pull the word like this, why you need to be cautious in asking a question, okay, why you need to have a shraddha, and why you need to have that balance, okay, the sanyam. The curiosity should not be some casual curiosity, because that will lead you to vinash. Okay, neither here nor there. That's what that Bhagavad Gita verse says. Okay, and initially any effort is always going to feel like a hard work. Many people give up. That's a normal thing. In my research, I'll tell you, hundreds and hundreds of people write me emails. They feel like, sir, I also want to do something like this. And when I say, okay, fine, here is a problem, and start here, and they all disappear. Okay, I mean, this has happened hundreds and hundreds of times. Of course, there are exceptions, there are pleasant exceptions, and then it's of course a lot of fun to work with them. So quickly think of if you have this urge. Again, I'm giving you the insight of Mahabharata. If you get this urge, why don't you study something? If you feel like asking someone, really recognize that that is your curiosity. That's a good question. That's a good thing. But there is no point asking someone else. There is the point that you need to work on it. That is the focus of Mahabharata, on a kruti. Or if you get the urge to ask this question, not just to me, even to others, and nothing wrong with it. I mean, Guru Shishya Parampara is a very key aspect of our civilization. Will you be my guru? But the challenge is when people ask me that, and I said, I don't know if I'm qualified to be a guru, but they say, no, I think you are qualified. I say, okay, let's begin. And then I give them something to work on, and then they disappear. Then they run away. Okay. So it's like, they want something ready-made. So think of that question when you're asking somebody, will you be my guru? Exactly what you are expecting. Maybe the expectation gap is there. Or why don't you explain something so and so? Many times I have explained it in many places. Sometimes I have not explained because I don't know. But somebody has to do the homework, go through my 400 plus videos, read my 3 books, read my 500 plus blogs. And then if you still have a question, then it's worth asking. Okay. Now, what I'm telling you is not just limited to me. I'm telling you, we have many great individuals in our civilization working on all kinds of different fronts. Okay. And but still it's very limited, and we have to be very cautious how we make use of their time. Many times the challenges I see are something like this. People want A, but they don't want a B. Again, it relates to this graph here. They want the Shakti, they're like a Karma Shakti, but they don't want to do Bhakti. Okay, they want Mukti, but they don't want to take that effort to gain the knowledge. Okay, that Shuddhi they don't want. They want Punya Phala, the final fruit, but they don't want to acquire Punya, which takes tapasya. Okay, I want to go fast through that. Now, before again we look at some additional insights, I want to give you the context of chronology. And many people sometimes feel that all the time, maybe I'll say, that the message of Mahabharata or message of Bhagavad Gita is all spiritual, whatever that spiritual means. And if you ask them, they will struggle. So why bother when it happened? Well, actually, it's partly there, partly correct. Until somebody else started fighting with us, the Western Indologist, okay, telling them that, guys, your Mahabharata is basically a fiction. It didn't bother us, right? Okay, I mean, actually, I wouldn't say that. There were many people in antiquity, going back 400 years, going back 1,000 years, and they were always curious to know. And actually, you will find how many the people who wrote Mahabharata, people who wrote Ramayana, they know exactly what they were doing. They both are itihasa. Okay, and what is the definition of itihasa? Puravrittam katha yuktam itihasam prachakshate. Okay, it is a past event. So if it is a physical event, then it has a dating. We may able to find it, we may not able to find it. And those people, if you read Ramayana, if you read Mahabharata, you will be amazed how much evidence is there, objective, empirical, scientific evidence is there that allows us to date these epics. That's true for Rigveda. People fight on the Rigveda. Aparushaya, you should not even bother to date it. I will tell you guys, those people who say that, I don't know what dogma they are stuck in, but they have not bothered to study Rigveda. Okay. Um, so context of chronology is very important. Okay, and hopefully we get that into more into question and answer. Context is the king. So yes, it is true that until somebody started this into a sanshay, into a problem that Mahabharata is a fiction, it just never happened, somebody somewhere just wrote it. So it's a right sanshay. Somebody has it. Now we have to respond to it. But then some of our people, our civilization people think, oh, only for that reason the dating is important. No, they are absolutely wrong on this. If you read Ramayana, if you read Mahabharata, you will see how much detail Bhagwan, I mean sage Valmiki or Bhagwan Vyasa, sage Vyasa has put their efforts in noting down some of the interesting things. In fact, Vyasa is very, very clear. Vyasa very clearly says to Dhritarashtra that don't worry, Kala Mahima is there. We're all going to perish, but I am going to record it in such a way that this will always be remembered. This will be used as an inspiration by posterity. Same thing with Valmiki Ramayana. Okay, when Valmiki is wondering who is that person I can write, who can provide that niti vichar, who can provide that guidance, and Narad Muni says, "Why are you thinking? It's Bhagwan Rama." Okay, so quickly I'm going to walk you through the context of chronology. Okay, how I arrived at the dating of the Mahabharata war. But before that, a quick summary. This is a summary, one slide summary of my work of 30 plus years. Today is where we are, 21st century. If you go back to zero, that's our calendar. Like, you know, number of our birth would say 19 something or 2000 something, right? If you are younger than 20-year-old, that's that zero. That's a Gregorian calendar reference, you know, in the West assumed to be the reference to Jesus Christ. Okay. It is meant for a calendar purpose, and that's not our subject today, but we can talk about it some other time. But if you go back, 5000 minus 5k means 5000 BC. Okay, so that's actually 7000 years ago. It's very important you remember that. If you go to minus 10,000 BC means 12,000 years ago, 15,000 BC means 17,000 years ago, and so on. And so when I began, I started with the Mahabharata. Of course, I was studying all these subjects in parallel. I extracted 300 plus every single possible astronomy reference from Mahabharata. I put them together as a jigsaw puzzle, as a crossword puzzle, arrived at 5561 BCE as the year of Mahabharata Yuddha. I'm going to share a few highlights from that. I did the same thing with Ramayana, more than 600 specific astronomy references from Valmiki Ramayana. I put them together again in a scientific fashion, empirical fashion, objective testing, logical reasoning, okay, arrived at 12,209 BC as the year of Ram Ravan Yuddha. And then using hydrological evidence initially, and then my co-researcher, I mean, she's a researcher in her own right, Mrs. Rupa Bhattijyan, she's on the call today. She's going so deep into this Rigveda, possibly that would take a series of lectures, okay, if you organize her lectures. But the initial, just purely based on the hydrology evidence as a crude directional inference that I could draw is that possibly the ruchas of Rigveda or the descriptions of the rivers tells us that it could be as late as 6 millennium BC, the timing of Mahabharata, when Vyasa recasted them possibly. But what we definitely know is that the oldest portion of Rigveda go definitely No doubt, no ifs, no buts, beyond 22,000 BC, meaning more than 24,000 years ago. So that's our civilizational picture, okay? And that's my work. Now, initially, as I said, I started with astronomy and then hydrology, but these conclusions have been validated, corroborated, whatever the supported by 1,000+ different empirically, objectively testable evidence from dozen plus different disciplines of hard sciences. All right. Quickly, against this deep antiquity of civilization, compare the European Enlightenment, that 1637, and that's where the problem started. That's where they doubt, not that there were no internal doubters, because Indian tradition is all about samshaya. Okay, it's all about asking questions, debating, and whatnot. But this is a debate of a different kind. Okay, that what Krishna says, vada pravadata aham. Okay, the vada that is done to discern the truth, I am there among them. But when Western Indologists came, they actually wanted to destroy the Indian culture, destroy the Indian culture from the minds of Indians, okay, make them feel doubtful. And they succeeded very well. They succeeded mightily, by the way. But this is one of my British friend, who has studied Indian history. He suggested that I should put a dot on that European Enlightenment so that people start seeing the context. So they came there and they started telling us. What did they start telling us? This whole nonsense of Aryan invasion theory. They said, oh, okay, guys, you don't have a deep history. The Aryan, so-called Aryan, came on the horses. You didn't have horses. You didn't have a chariots. 1500 BC, so 3,500 years ago. And then they sat on the bank of non-existent Saraswati. I'm saying this mockingly to them. Okay, there was no Saraswati by that time. And then they supposedly wrote this Rigveda, and then somebody wrote Ramayana, and somebody wrote Mahabharata. That is the nonsense that has been taught to us even in our textbooks, as many of you know. But that nonsense came as a part of European Enlightenment for India, by the way. Okay, then just like we can blame them, there is some reason to blame us. We are also stuck into our Yuga Dogma. I call it Yuga Dogma for a reason. In our ancient narratives, there are multiple definitions of a yuga, but for some unfortunate reason, we very dogmatically, most of us, I would say, pick one definition. We are stuck in that 3102 BCE, which was meant for a calendar purpose. We need some reference, just like they used Gregorian reference 2000 years ago, right? As a birth of Jesus. There is a humor about it. Jesus was born in 4 AD. Like, come on now. If the year starts with Jesus' birth, then why Jesus is born in 4 AD? Because in reality, nobody knows if Jesus existed. Nobody knows when Jesus was born, assuming he existed. And there are many issues with that. Okay. Now, so that's Yuga is our problem, guys. Okay. They might have tried to twist us, but we have accepted it. And we have to get rid of our Yuga dogma. Yuga is our concept. We should study it. There are 30 different definitions. They're meant for different purposes, but not to take that particular one definition of Yuga and confuse it with our history. We will destroy our comprehension of a history if we just get stuck into that 432,000 years and whatnot. Okay. Then many of our pro-Indic researchers also, you will find, they find this limit. I don't know why. I mean, it beats me. Okay. But they will not able to pull themselves outside that 8,000 BC. They are stuck there, okay? In even where the evidence is exactly contrary to what where they are stuck, okay? But that's the issue, something you need to be aware of. And the reason I mentioned, because when people ask, okay, what are your thoughts about so and so? No, I don't have any thoughts. I want you to read that, what their claim is, their evidence, and if you are convinced, then we can discuss, because then I'll tell you what is wrong with it. But don't just come and ask for opinion, not just to me. Don't do that with other Indic researchers as well. Okay. So quickly, I started, as I said, with reading Mahabharata. I extracted all astronomy evidence. What is my theory? All astronomy observations of Mahabharata text are factual, actual, visual observations of the sky of Mahabharata times. I collected more than 300 plus, and when I read again, I find some more too. Objectively, in a scientific fashion, I tested each one of them, sometime individually, sometime in a group, okay? And that is what we call triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing, or as Sage Patanjali says, Pratyaksha Anumana Agama Pramanani, or Sage Gotama says, Pratyaksha Anumana Upamana Shabda Pramanani. All our Shad Darshanas refer to that, okay? And the background knowledge, all I had to use there was astronomy, modern astronomy, Indian astronomy, and the Mahabharata text. That's it, guys. Nothing else is required. Okay. the evidence of Mahabharata is so powerful. So what does it tell us? Okay, so those 300 observations, I split them into two types of classification. I'll not walk you through that. I have hundreds of videos on this. I would encourage those who are listening to go and watch those videos. But simply, the evidence in the blue is such that it gives you approximate range where you should search for the date of Mahabharata. Just like if I am looking for a Guntur, and if I am searching in Bihar, okay, tough luck. It's like that. We have to first get into the right area. I have to get into the area of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, whatnot, and then start searching for Guntur. It's the same thing. So that blue evidence gives us approximate range where we must go first to search for the year of Mahabharata war, and the other evidence, other side, the orange color or yellow color, that helps you fine tune, exactly find the Guntur, where within the Andhra Pradesh, something like that. Okay. All right. So what does it tell us? I'm going to quickly walk you through. So we start here where we are, 21st century. There's one specific evidence, and that's where my work started. Fast through that, called Arundhati Vasishtha observation back in 1995. It took me 15 years to figure this out. But when I did figure it out, I found that the Mahabharata war can only happen between these two dates, after 11,091 BCE and before 4508 BCE. Then very recently, another researcher, Siddhartha Chabra, he's a Hare Krishna devotee, but also a researcher. And he took my particular claim, tested it again using the latest astronomy data, and actually the interval shrinks, which is a beautiful thing. So now the Mahabharata war has to be in between, okay? And I'm just showing you the reference where that final answer came out, 5561 BCE. And I'm going to show you a small demonstration of it. Now, this is, you can call it a 101 demonstration, okay? And so all I want you to know is this, okay, when it begins, okay. All you need to remember, I mean, you can watch everything. If you understand astronomy before, great. But if you don't, think of this line, okay? Anything to the top of it or on the left side of it, between those two stars, Mizar is Vasishtha, Alcor, this is Mizar, Vasishtha, this is Alcor is Arundhati. Anyone that is on the top or anyone that is on the left side it will be seen as walking ahead of the other star when we see from the Earth at that particular time. I'm starting this simulation going back 24,000 years ago. Okay, that's the kind of minimum time for civilization that we looked at. And this is this astronomy phenomenon. So those of you understand, great. If you don't understand, just see right now, which is say going back now 20,000 years ago, what is happening? The Mizar is above that blue line, which means Mizar will be seen walking ahead of Arundhati. Now, why is this a big deal? I will mention as we go through this, because the Vasudev in the Mahabharata, at the time of Mahabharata war, he is saying, look, Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishtha. So this Alcor is ahead of Mizar. So Alcor is on the top of this blue line or to the left of this blue line. Okay. So just watch the simulation. Okay, I'll not describe the astronomy, what you are seeing on the screen. Just quickly, this is the ecliptic North Pole. This is the North Celestial Pole. Our Earth is inclined at an axis. So that axis keeps on changing very slowly, and it completes one cycle in 26,000 years. Okay. All right. And I'll stop in between. So we start 24,000 years ago. Look, at every time when the point of NCP changes, the relative positions of Mizar and Alcor, or Vasishtha and Arundhati, as they seen from the Earth, going around like a clock in 24 hours. Okay, that will change. So we are going to come to this year 10,248, and some magic happens. Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. Okay, so I will stop it here. Now, this is done by one wonderful Dharma warrior, Amaresh GS. Okay, he's from Bellary, he's from Karnataka, and he created this for us. Okay, so what do you see in this 10,248? Those who are engineers, mathematicians, they will know it's a chord of a circle. Okay, as it happens, And so therefore Mizar and Alcor are on that same line. This is the meridian, you can say, that connects the poles. So in year 10,248, if BCE, that's more than 12,000 years ago, if we were around and we were looking in the northern sky, we would have seen Arundhati and Vasishta, they are just going together. Okay, no one ahead, no one behind. Okay, that's the perfect gender equality, you can say. I'm saying that jokingly, of course. Okay, now if as it proceeds further, and between this area here, I call it the epoch of Arundhati Yuga. Look what happens. You will see that the Alcor will be on this side and Mizar will be on that side. Okay, so during this time, look how that blue line is. During this 5,000 year time period, after 10,248 and until 4636, okay, anytime, and that includes 5561 BCE, the year of Mahabharata war, anyone in India or anyone in the northern hemisphere looking in the northern sky around the pole, they would have seen Arundhati Vasishta, Arundhati walk ahead, Vasishta follow behind. Okay, that's now, guys. Galileo, everyone would have heard the name of Galileo. He says, once you make a discovery, it's very easy to understand. It takes 2 minutes. But he says the point is to make a discovery. Now, if you say it, you say, okay, that's easy. I mean, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal, if we get in a question answer time, I will talk about that, because there are 130 plus Mahabharata researchers, with the exception of 4. Other people are and were so scared of this observation because they cannot explain it. They simply run away from this observation. That's the big deal. Okay. And when I started in 1995, very naively, I thought I'm going to take a weekend and solve this. It took me 15 years from 1995 to 2009 to figure this out. Of course, once it figured it out, it's very easy to explain. And still, you'll find many Mahabharata researchers even today struggle to understand what this Arundhati Vasishta observation means. Okay, all right. So now what happens? When I come to 4636 BC, okay, again, you will find that they are together in the sense they are now no one ahead, no one behind, as seen from the earth. And I gave you a simple way to visualize that is if that line goes through them, then no one ahead, no one behind. But if one of them is on the left side or on the top, then that star is walking ahead. Now you will find after 4636, it is the Vasishta that is ahead. So now we are talking 6,500 years ago. So now I'm going to bring you from that 6,500 years ago to our times, okay, as I continue the simulation. So last 6,500 years ago, it is the Mizar, the Vasishta, that is walking ahead of Arundhati. Okay, that's a fact, right to our times. But Vyasa is saying at the time of Mahabharata war, Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishta. And what does that tell us? That simply tells us that Mahabharata war did not happen anytime in the last 6,500 years. Quickly, I'm going to walk you through the next evidence. The duration of Bhishma on the bed of arrows. Many of you, and if it was an interactive session, I would have asked you, how many days do you know? And I'm sure many of you would have said 58 days. That is a very typical answer, okay? Very lazy and Tamasic answer. But I wouldn't blame you if you're not a Mahabharata researcher. But what about the Mahabharata researcher? Almost without exception, I would say, everyone talks of 58 days. And here is the joke. They claim Bhishma was on the bed of arrows for 58 days. But the year for the Mahabharata war that they claim, they cannot show 58 days for Bhishma on the bed of arrows between the 10th day of the war when Bhishma fell down, and then since then he was on the bed of arrows, to the day of winter solstice. Okay, in our times it's 21st December, right? But don't get stuck to 21st December. So they cannot show that. So do you see the problem with this? So they're claiming something, but they cannot show that. You know what Bhagwan Patanjali says about that? It's a Samadhipat Sutra number 9. He says, Shabda Jnananupati Vastu Shunyo Vikalpa. Shabda Jnan, you are claiming something. Shabda Jnananupati Vastu Shunya, but you don't have a evidence to back it up. It leads to confusion, it leads to delusion. Okay, that's what Bhagwan Patanjali is warning us. Shabda Jnananupati Vastu Shunyo Vikalpa. Okay, so now what I did is, I'm going to make this story a bit fast so that I get some time to talk about some of the additional insights. I spent 2 years. I started with a Shraddha If all Mahabharata researchers are saying 58 days, why should I doubt them? There is no reason to doubt them. Why would they tell something that's not true? But it was not matching for my 5561 BC. So finally I said, you know what, before I write it, still, because all other evidence was perfectly matching, like, solving that perfect Rubik's Cube, except this like one dot. So I started reading Mahabharata. I must have read these specific portions, but entire Mahabharata multiple times just for this Bhishma Nirvana. And it's not very easy to read Mahabharata. It's huge, guys. But what I found is the evidence just came flooding in. Initially, I found 6 references, then I found 20 references, then I found 50, 60, 100. In fact, you can refer to whole Adhyaya, you can refer to whole Parva, and they all point to a minimum of 92 days for Bhishma on the bed of arrows from the 10th day of the war to the day of winter solstice. Now, what's the big deal? I mean, people will say, why fight 58 versus 92? There what it comes. So this is just a quick reference. I'll not go through that unless we get into a question answer. Tons of references saying Bhishma was definitely there more than 92 days. Now, when we combine that with astronomic understanding of it, it gives us a wonderful information. What does it tell us? It says just purely on the Bhishma Nirvana evidence, the Mahabharata war cannot happen before 7000 BC. It cannot happen anytime after 4700 BC. How precious. So Arundhati Vasishtha has given us the limits, but now this one is giving us even further narrow limits. It's kind of bit difficult to explain. Like Arundhati Vasishtha, I could show you one simulation, and I'm not saying that everyone would have understood. But those of you who would have understood, especially those of you who did understand, you should get a goosebump moment. Okay, the Shabda Praman, what Vyasa said, that people couldn't figure it out, and the Western Indologists used that to say Vyasa is writing all kinds of nonsensical things. And now we are showing with evidence that no, he wasn't writing nonsensical thing. He was writing perfectly sensible thing, and for a reason. What a genius. Okay, so Bhishma Nirvana is taking us further, but it's not easy to explain in just one slide. Okay. Something else, if you take that Bhishma Nirvana evidence and combine with additional evidence from Mahabharata text, as I said, there is a 300 plus pieces of evidence. For example, the phases and positions of the moon, the Chandra Kala, the crescent moon, full moon, Amavasya, that's all described or can be inferred from the Mahabharata evidence. For example, if you go through the descriptions of the phases and positions of the moon from the Mahabharata text, 18 days of the war, this is what you find. For the first 7 days, there are no descriptions. I mean, there may be one or two, but hardly, it's absent from descriptions of the moon. Then from beginning 8th day, 8, 9, 10, 11, you see descriptions of moon everywhere. And then beginning with day 12, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and even the day after, you see so many descriptions, rich descriptions of full moon like moon. Okay, of course, the full moon is only on the one day, the day of a Purnima. But those of you who know astronomy, you know that the Purnima day, the full moon day, plus minus 3 days, plus minus 4 days, plus minus 5 days. The moon is significantly illuminated. And, you just looking at it, you might say, oh, that looks like a full moon. Okay, so those are the descriptions you find. Now, what's the big deal again? If you combine that evidence of Bhishma Nirvana with this full moon descriptions, or rather the phases and positions of the moon through 18 days of the war, it gives us a further narrow interval. Then we know from their positions, we know which lunar month it was. Many of you would already know on the Shraddha that it was the month of Margashirsha. On 25th this year, we are going to celebrate Gita Jayanti, Margashirsha Shukla Ekadashi, right? Actually, the war began on the Kartik Amavasya, and please watch my other talk. I think it has come out, or it will come out on Saptology, where I explain why the Kartik Amavasya, if the Bhagavad-Gita was told on the Kartik Amavasya, Kartika Bahula Amavasya, people call, why we celebrate on Margashirsha Shukla Ekadashi, okay? But I'll move through that. So if you use all this evidence, it gets narrow, and actually we end up with a specific period of only 1500 years, from 5125 BC going backwards to 6700 BC, and only there we can find the year of Mahabharata war. Against that, why are many hundreds of researchers claiming Mahabharata near 3000 BC? Because they start and they're stuck with that 3000 BC Kali Yuga. Okay, I'll not go into that today. So now some of the additional insights, and then we'll stop and we'll get into questions and answers. Okay, this Shraddha, that is that Shraddha axis we saw. Prajna is that the axis of intellect. And then the axis of courageous deed, actually karma, that is the Jidnyasa axis. Which is to say, just having a kutuhal, having a curiosity is never enough. I mean, it's a good starting point. Okay. But then you have to do something. Each one of us has to do something about it, whatever is possible within our means. I mean, everyone cannot be doing genetics. Everyone may not have the expertise to do linguistics or astronomy or medicine or whatnot. But whatever limited capacity we have, tana, mana, dhana, we call it, we have to use it to get to the truth. Okay, so this is the formula. This is the formula of one of my guru, I would say. Okay, by the way, I don't have one specific guru. This is given by Vinobaji. And we are, the Guntur connection or the Andhra connection, you may know, the Vinobaji's Bhudan Yajna started in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so he is one of the great influence, the influence, I would say, number one influence on me. So this is his formula. Shraddha plus Pradnya plus Virya equal to Satya. The reverence plus intellect plus courage, heroic deeds equal to truth. Okay, that's what leads us to truth, and it leads us in an iterative fashion. In just one shot, we don't get to the final answer. Okay, we get a partial answer. Any improvement that we make, any progress that we make, and I'm not just talking in a Mahabharata text, any instrument we are trying to make, any the house we are trying to build, or any new invention, we make some progress, and then we come back and we make a further improvement. It's a very iterative process. Okay, for example, Patanjali says some people come with their punya from the past life, and that's great if that happens. But he says many iterasham. He says for many others, basically they can achieve the same thing, even same thing in this life, irrespective of what is your past bank balance from the previous life. He says Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Pradnya, Purvaka, Iteresham. Okay, those who don't have a very rich intellect balance and tapasya balance from the past life, they can do that here. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Pradnya, Purvaka, Iteresham, and they can achieve the same objective. Okay, so that's another insight. Now people will think, why am I pulling Patanjali? Well, you will see that, so I talked about emphasis of Rigveda, that is on the dhyana, or Upanishad on the jnana, or Ramayana on the niti, or Mahabharata on the karma, Bhagavatam on the bhakti, Bhagavad-Gita on the samyak jnana. Similarly, you'll find darshana, our shared darshanas, their emphasis is experiential, to give us the experience. Okay, so philosophy is fine, Tattvajnana is fine, but it needs to be realized in our life, and the darshanas are there to give us the experience of all that we are discussing. So, they're all complementary to each other. Okay, quickly, this is again insight, okay, from Mahabharata, but from all our ancient Indian narratives. Now, when you heard this, like you heard 5561 BC, and those of you who are listening, you will have all kinds of different reactions. I mean, not each one of you may have different reactions, but together, some people would have been convinced, other people would have been elated, other group would have been said, my God, no, 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 no. I have heard this 3000, whatever it is, 3102, 3136, 3138, 3143, 3126. There are like 60 dates around that 3000 for that same reason I told you. So what should I do? Well, here is again the insights from our ancient narratives, specifically Mahabharata. He says, accept it and share it with others. That's what Krishna is telling many times Arjuna. Okay, just trust me, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja, and so on. And share it with others. Accept it, act. Okay, but that is not the end of it. Okay, this is on a Shraddha. Okay, but if you want to go beyond that, if you are not convinced, that's not a bad thing. That's actually encouraged. Okay, and I'll show you our foundations of our Sanatan Vedic Dharma or Hindu Dharma. Okay, if you are not convinced, study it deeply. So in this case, I would say study my claim for 5561 BC and be convinced. Actually, surprise, surprise, you might get convinced, which means you need to do self-study. You need to use your intellect. You may go a step further and you say, Nilesh, okay, some things are good, but not everything. Critique it brutally, logically, and now that takes efforts. Okay, many people actually critique, and I welcome that, by the way, and I thank them. But many people absolutely lack sense of what scientific acumen is, logical reasoning, and so they create like big tomes, which are like humorous to read, but actually very, very sad. I mean, I feel sad. Sad meaning what the nonsense they have written. Okay, So critique is important, but you need to do it logically, you need to do it brutally, you need to do it scientific acumen. And even, you know what, you may actually do something even better, and that's present an alternate and possibly a superior claim to what I have done, what other researchers have done. And that's how I'm referring to making progress in an iterative fashion. Okay, I'm not the first one to work on the Mahabharata dating or Ramayana dating or Veda dating. There are many others. I did learn from them. Okay, right from Lokmanya Tilak, S.B. Dikshit, Pavakane, Srinivas Raghavan. I mean, there are so many researchers. Okay, Shastri. Okay, we learn from all of them. So if you can come up with a better claim, great. And then the last one, I always do that. You know, in the social media, we are so connected, and people can waste your time. Just ask some stupid question, waste your time. You know, it's whether it's a Twitter, you know, the Twitter world, or what is that other, Facebook. And I just use these two, but I know there are 10 other platforms. Okay, so if I find that somebody is wasting the time, somebody is not willing to do tapasya, then, you know, in a very politely, you know, Bhagavad-Gita talks about namrata, amanita. In a very humble way, I say, get lost, take a hike. Okay, so that person, you know, samshayatma that we talk, samshayatma vinashati. So when the doubt is good, but the doubt should lead to actually wanting to know things. Okay, so that's that side. Okay, now what is the foundation of Sanatana Vedic Dharma? This is again from the best of my ability to comprehend from um, the study of our ancient Indian narratives. My focus is on using the scientific method to follow this. So therefore my bias, you can say, or my emphasis is on this area. So these are the 5 elements of a scientific method. Again, I said, the scientific method didn't come from Europe. Okay, they definitely used it, tried to use it, improve it, and still struggling with it. But they have done a great work in last 300, 400 years. But it is there in our darshanas, pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, shabda, pramanani. Okay, so, or, you know, prameya, pramana, drishtanta, siddhanta, avayava, tarka, samshaya, nirnaya, vada, jalpa, vitanda, hitva, bhasa, chala, jati, nigra, sthana. This is Nyaya Darshana, 16 elements. That, so you need a theory, evidence. I showed you right there at the beginning what was my theory, what evidence I looked at, how did I analyze it, and I gave you a glimpse of it. So those are the 5 elements. But I realized very soon that just the knowledge of those 5 is not sufficient. A vijnana buddhi, a scientific acumen, and that's a subject by itself. So I'm not going to go there. You also need a tantra yukti. Once you see a problem, you have to truly understand a problem before you jump into solving it. Many people just run and they come up with a solution, you know, and they have given an answer to a wrong problem, maybe a correct answer to another problem, but not the problem they thought they are solving. So tantra yukti comes into the picture there, and tarka shastra, a logical reasoning. Many people will do even a good research. Many people will collect the data, collect evidence, but they don't know how to properly use that evidence to draw proper inference. That's where the Tarka Shastra comes in picture. I have given the name, I call it Ashtakarnakshipti, but I want to use this to talk about the 3 foundations of our Hinduism, or even Hindutva, the Sanatana Vedic Dharma. And the reason I have added this word Hinduism or Hindutva, because people just make a big fuss. The Hinduism is a very recent word, or hey, Hinduism is good, but Hindutva is bad. Utter nonsense. Okay, and we shouldn't fall for that stupidity. Hindutva means a state of being a Hindu. Okay, if they don't understand, that is their problem. Okay, Hinduism, the word may be coined recently. So what? It is referring to a specific thing which is very, very ancient. Okay, and Sanatana Vedic Dharma is another word. 3 foundations. One is a vichara swatantra, the freedom of thought. Okay, the next one is the achar saishnuta, endurance in conduct, guys, and that is something I feel that many of us lack. Okay, we just think somebody else, if somebody is doing it, we just add more thing, you know, think that nice donkey, you know, let's put one more thing on the back of that donkey, let him or let her do more work. No, that's not how it works. Achar saishnuta is the endurance in conduct, and each one of us has to take to that. And the third one is a Shraddha, okay, ultimate faith, ultimate reverence, ultimate convictions in the absolute morals. What are absolute morals? Ahimsa, Satyamasteya, Brahmacharya, Sangra, right? Aparigraha, right? And you will see that, and if you have a time, again, I'll talk more about it. So these are the 3 foundations. Now look at this beauty. That's why we have all different pantha, okay, different deities for our worship. We have no problems with that. That can be there. Philosophical differences are also fine, as long as we agree on these 3. And where do they take us? which are, so the freedom of thought is required if you want to reach the truth. Otherwise, in the West, as you saw, they burn people on the stake for saying that all the stars that you see are like suns, just like our sun. Bruno, right? And Bruno was burnt on a stake for saying that the stars are like suns. Or you know the story of Galileo. So we need the freedom of thought. Okay, then that endurance in conduct, which means each one of us must be involved. That is the insight of Mahabharata, must be involved in our swadharma, in our swakarma. We should take some small task, best of our ability, but continue to be engaged. Almost you should be, each one of us should be known for that. Like, say, for example, as by God's grace, the way it happened, like if people talk of Mahabharata dating, Ramayana dating, Rigveda dating, they say Nilesh, right? In small way or a big way, I still consider this is a small way. I mean, dating is a small, very important, but still a small aspect of it. Okay, but find a way and do the seva. And then Sanyam, the Tarka Shastra teaches you the balance, okay, along with that Satya. Even if it is your theory, like say I'm claiming 5561 BC, but if truly somebody comes tomorrow with a better claim, with a better evidence, I should be willing to, I should be willing to drop my theory. I should be happy. I should be elated that somebody has come up with something better. Okay, that Sanyam, that Samyak Jnana, okay, that yoga balanced viewpoint, it takes efforts. So this is the top one. This is the province of a buddhi. This is the province of a body, because we do tapasya with a sharir. And the Tarka Shastra is a province of a mind. It needs intellect, but it's a province of a mind in the sense, because it's the mind that can take you to kutarka or vitarka, okay, and from the proper tarka. Okay, just quickly, I'm pulling few verses from, I think they're from Bhagavad-Gita, again, therefore from Mahabharata. See, after telling this whole Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna, he says, Yathechasi tathakuru. Hey, I told you, Itite jnanam akyatam goyat goyataram maya vimrushaita dasheshena yathechasi tathakuru. Now, I told you what I wanted to tell you. Okay. Now, do as you see it fit. That is that freedom that I'm talking about. Or with a sharir, when we do the tapasya seva, it says shariram kevalam karma purvanna noti kilbisham. Okay. If you are purely using your only sharir to do the work, the pap will not touch you. Okay. That's why, again, I don't want to talk about that subject, but we say when animals, like a tiger is killing his prey, he is not attached with any additional papa. Okay, he may be going through his karma balance, but not additional papa. He's just not using any instruments. He's just using whatever is given to his body, right? So shariram kevalam karma, but that applies to human beings also. Okay, so basically do some work with the sharir. Okay, exercise is great, we must do exercise, but instead of just doing a exercise that doesn't produce something, I mean, why not work in the garden? Okay, why not just go around and do the grocery shopping and help the family, for the kids, find a way. Okay, and then Tarka Shastra is what? You don't deviate from the truth. Okay, you stick to that logical reasoning. Siddhya asiddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. A certain evidence may go against your proposal, certain evidence may go in support of your proposal. Either way, you should not be perturbed. Okay, that is that samatva buddhi. Okay, these are our three foundations. Quickly, additional insights. I'm going to take maybe not more than 5 minutes and we'll stop, just a hinting at them. Now, Mahabharata, Ramayana, all our ancient Indian narratives, Rigveda, other Vedas, Upanishad, they gives us these hints sometimes. Okay, all the details are not provided, but they do give us enough hints. And if we have this combination of Shraddha, Samshaya, and intellect, okay, integrity, energy, and intellect, we can find out. So I want to just give you some highlights from science, technology, culture, and technology. I wrote technology twice. Okay, I meant to say science, culture, civilization, technology. Forgive me. Okay, so what are some of the insights? If we look at science, Mahabharata will tell you about the Purushartha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Any one of them is not put down. Okay, there has to be a proper balance. Otherwise, weirdness comes into the picture. Okay, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. There has to be a balance. There is a time for everything. Cosmology, which is a Sankhya philosophy I had in mind when I wrote Cosmology. Just like the modern chemistry, we have these elements and whatnot. Okay, and you may be surprised that modern chemistry, the way we study, is not more than 200, 250 years old. Okay, But before that, it was nothing but Sankhya, and Sankhya principles still apply. Okay, Purush and Prakriti, and then the division into creation and whatnot, and a scientific method. I'll not spend time on that. I talked about Patanjali's sutra, or um, all Shad Darshanas, or Gautama. Culture, Varna Ashrama. Reason I'm mentioning, and I don't have a time to elaborate on that, but Varna Ashrama gets a bad name, guys. Okay, and why? I mean, partly that is a right thing. Why it gets a bad name? Because for anything, any concept, okay, any particular framework, there is always going to be three aspects. Okay, one is a Prakriti, like as is. Okay, so if we look at all the people who are attending the seminar today, I mean, we can say that person is taller than this person, that person is a bit darker than this person is fair, this person has blue eyes and gray eyes and whatnot. That's a Prakriti. We just know those differences. Okay, Sanskriti teaches us to see the common factor among them all. We are all Atma. Mamevansho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. That is our Sanskriti. But a Vikruti can also enter, where just based on somebody's height, based on somebody's color of the skin, based on what person is doing, whether he is teaching or whether he's a doctor, whether he's an engineer, whether he is doing a farm labor, whether he is doing a business, we may use this to discriminate people, and that is a Vikruti. Okay, so that has happened around the world. Okay, so to that extent, it is a problematic. But Varna Ashrama is a beautiful system, and we can talk sometime about that. Or the fluidity of Varna Ashrama. Again, I have taken enough time, so I will not go into it. But if you read through the Mahabharata, many Mahabharata Upakhyan, what you will find, it's so beautiful. You may know the story of a Dharma Vyadha, the butcher. Okay, and a Jajali Brahman, uh, sent by his guru, who is a lady. Okay, sent by his guru to this Dharma Vyadha, the butcher, to take the final lessons before he gets his education is complete, and he gets the final certificate from the guru. And that Brahmin person is like surprised, why am I being sent to the butcher? Okay, and then I mean, I'll not have a time to tell you the story. Same thing with a Kaushiki Brahmana being sent by his guru to Tuladhar Vaishya, and the Vaishya is saying, okay, everything I do, it doesn't matter whether it's a cabbage or potatoes or onions, I always make sure that I balance them properly. Okay, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. So through our life, we can get these lessons. And there are these stories that you will see, the Upakhyan. These are stories based on original ancient events, okay? But they are stated there to explain the fluidity of Varnashrama. If I had a time, I would go there. Continuity of celebrations. Quickly, I'll mention a point. Now in Andhra Pradesh, I don't know exactly what you guys do on the Ugadi day. In Maharashtra, it's called Gudi Padwa, if you know that, and if you have heard that name. And it's a bamboo stick that is raised, and then we put a kalash and cloth, and then do the puja and so on. Ugadi, Karnataka also celebrates Ugadi. Andhra Pradesh celebrates Ugadi. The reason I'm mentioning is that tradition, that Ugadi tradition, at least the way it is done, Gudi Padwa in Maharashtra, that is celebrated here. You will find in different parts of India, it is celebrated in somewhat different fashion. In some parts, it has been lost now. In Nepal, you will see that it is done as a Indra Jatra. Okay, it is done in Ashwin month. Maharashtra, it's a Chaitra. But you will find reference to that with a different name in Mahabharata. So the continuity of celebration, so Mahabharata is from 7,500 years ago. We see that same tradition being done there. But what if I surprise you by saying that? So in Mahabharata, it is called sometime Brahmotsav. Okay, and then Indra, a puja of Indra, Samvatsar beginning, and so on. If you go to Ramayana times, okay, it is called Indra Dwaj festival. Okay, and it was performed during again spring season, which is Vasanta Rutu, and in the month of Ashwin. That's going back 12,000 BC, 14,000 years ago. And you see like 5-6 different references to that Indra Dwaj festival in Ramayana. And so obviously it didn't start in Ramayana, it was before that. So you find through the study of these some insights about our celebrations. They might have seen modifications, but actually these celebrations, some of these celebrations at least, are very, very, go into deep antiquity. Quickly, and I'm almost done. So civilization, astronomy, until like 200-300 years ago, until after Newton and Lagrange and Einstein and then Hubble telescopes, you'll find the best astronomy text around the world, bar none, no ifs, no buts, was our Indian astronomy Siddhanta text. Okay, Surya Siddhanta, Aryabhatiya, and then many other works that came after that, and possibly works before that we have lost now. Now, why was the Indian astronomy so sophisticated? It can be used still today, by the way. It is that sophisticated. And Indian astronomy knew that you have to make changes periodically, okay, correct some constants. It was why it was so sophisticated, because it has to do with the dharma, artha, kama, moksha, the four purushartha. Agriculture, navigation, both need a good calendar, okay, for a proper successful agriculture, for proper successful navigation. And that's where this astronomy emerged. Then we have the philosophy, tattva-dhyana, we have the darshana to actually experience the philosophical aspect. So it doesn't just live there in the book, it doesn't just stay there in the book. Quickly, technology, astra shastra, travel through land, water, and air, and I'm deliberately using this. We have the Pushpak Viman, okay, but don't think Pushpak Viman is only, the air travel is only mentioned in Ramayana. If you go to Mahabharata, okay, the Sauba, the Shalva had an aerial car. That's the description comes, who attacked Krishna's Dwarka. Or Uparichar, if you see the story, that he's going in the air. Now we'll say, so where is the aeroplane? Where is the aircraft engine? Guys, I sold aircraft engines, by the way, okay? Well, we can ask that about many, many other things. No, we don't have it. So that's what I meant. Many times, all we are left with a description. Now, you can understand the description in different way, maybe as a metaphorical, maybe as just an allegorical, maybe actually real, but you will not know whether it is a real or not until you investigate. When I started with that Arundhati Vasishta, and if I would have simply thought that it is just Vyasa wrote something, that's what even the four Mahabharata researchers who mentioned that observation, they initially thought. And they said somebody must have inserted afterwards, because it is impossible in the very order of nature. And they could have been right. So, but when I read, and I hadn't read those, and thankfully that was a good thing. So I didn't know that they had thought that. I said, well, this looks very simple. I thought I'll finish it. I'll find the answer in a weekend. And then it took me 15 years. So you have to study this. But I'm saying there are enough clues about the technology into Mahabharata if you read it, and then you have to work on it. Many, as you may know, you might have heard this as a war story, but many other people from outside actually take inspiration from Mahabharata, Ramayana, and they have built weapons based on just the descriptions. There is no technology mentioned here, not even a science, but the output description. And based on that, they build this. That is the tapasya, that is the use of intellect, and that is the shraddha that they said, if it is written in Mahabharata, must be true. Let me see how I can figure this out. And then there's a lot of work on the Ayurveda and surgery. Quickly, one more slide. Now, I don't have any expertise into the Astra and Shastra. One of my good friends, Dr. Shiva Shastri, based in Bangalore, he's a medical doctor, he's a surgeon, but he also worked in linguistics. Amazing, okay? He also works in Indian history, and he's also a military expert, okay? So he talks of Astra, Shastra, the fighter plates, fighter jets and whatnot. I don't. But, my equivalent here is for a intellectual Kshatriya, that Raju Malhotra talks about. Intellectual Kshatriya, you need to have these Astra and Shastra, scientific acumen, logical reasoning, Tantra Yukti, Vyapti Jnan, Hitchens razor, Hanlon's razors, reverse Hanlon's razors, Occam's razor. I'll just mention one, Hitchens razor. You'll find this very useful. When somebody comes to you and tells, hey, this is what I have figured it out, or so-and-so says this, okay, and you just say, oh yeah, I didn't know that. No, you should ask, what is his evidence or her evidence? What Hitchens razor, this comes after Christopher Hitchens, he says, a claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Just remember that, a very simple principle. So always somebody makes a claim, ask the person, what is the evidence? And don't stop there. Go 20 levels down, and you will find out if the person is real or a blatant fraud, okay? So that's Astra Shastra. Quickly, I want to show you a picture from Baba Ramdev's ashram there, from there. And I'm saying this again for a different reason. A great respect for Baba Ramdev, nothing to do with that. I'm so glad that he have that statue there. If you see the sign there, it says 1500 BCE. And my good friend in London, Sanket Kulkarni, and myself, we worked on this Sushruta. He pulled so much wonderful data from a British library. Then using my astronomy knowledge, we put it together. And we have shown that actually Sushrut is mentioned in Mahabharata. And if I'm telling you Mahabharata is more than 7,500 years ago, you by immediate know that he's more than 8,000 years old, okay? Long before that. So the date here mentioned is 1500 BCE. If you go to Wikipedia, it says 600 BCE, Okay, so we need to do something. So what I'm going to ask you, those people who are listening, if you have a good connection with what is that, Balakrishna ji or Baba Ramdev ji, please contact, don't leave everything to me. Please contact them and see, bring my research to their attention, my and Sanket's research to their attention. There are many YouTube series on YouTube about this dating of Sushruta, and see if one thing at a time, one sign at a time, if we can change it, okay, and correct our history. So just for that reason I showed it to you. One last thing, you might have heard the word Parthenogenesis. Okay, and Indian people get queasy. Oh, let's not have that discussion. This whole magical birth in Mahabharata and whatnot. Okay, now I'm not saying I know the technology how that happened in Mahabharata. I don't. Okay, I don't think anyone knows right now, or at least if anyone knows, I don't know. But the Parthenogenesis, and easily we think Partha, Krishna, Arjuna is called Partha. And why? Because Kunti is called Prutha, right? Her name from Kunti Bhoj, and so Parthenogenesis, does it have anything to do with it? And people say, no, 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 that's a Western word, that's a Greek word. I want to show you, if you just stay at that level, Wikipedia kind of very superficial level, you will never find the answer to the toughest questions. But etymology, just the subject of etymology can give you so many insights. So I'm going to show you that word Parthenogenesis. Okay, if you go to look for etymology of that word, it will say reproduction without fertilization or sexual union. Okay, the first time the word used was in 1849 or so. It comes from Greek parthenos, a virgin. Okay, a word of unknown origin. A word of unknown origin. There are no roots for that word in Greek language. Well, we have some clues. We can help them, right? And where does the genesis comes from? Now, genetics, do you think it has anything to do with India? I mean, the word origin with Sanskrit? Well, it's not interactive, so I cannot ask, but yeah, answer is yes. Okay. And then how they connect it, they say it's a pi root. The pi is another nonsense. Okay, the Proto-Indo-European. The Western people, until last 300 years ago, until Sir William Jones came to Kolkata and became familiar with Sanskrit and Panini, they had no clue how to connect the languages of Europe together. It is the Panini grammar, it is the Sanskrit that allowed them, okay, that helped them connect the languages. But they were not willing to take Sanskrit as the mother of languages. So what did they do? They put one artificial, non-existent language in between called Pi. Okay, so they say gene, but can you, just from the word gene, can you think of something in the Sanskrit that relates to that? Yes, it's the Janani, right? And then Jananendriya and so on. Okay, that has to do with give birth, beget, and so on. Okay, so there is no dearth of areas to work on. There are enough insights if we are willing to use that lethal combination of Shraddha, Samshaya in the sense of Samshaya for Buddhi, and Saprayojana, but not just idle curiosity, but do something about it. Okay, last slide quickly. If you are in India, my 3 books, one on Mahabharata, one on Bhishma Nirvana, which is related to Mahabharata, and one on the Ramayana, historic Rama. In India, it is called 12,209 BC. So you don't have to remember 2 things. That Ramayana, and when did it happen? 12,209 BC. These are published through Subbu Publications based in Karnataka. You can order online and so on. You can order the combo package. If you are outside India, then obviously through Amazon. Okay, they are in paperback and Kindle. And what I will say is, if the only option is a Kindle, guys, go for it. But that's not my recommended option. I created this because many people requested it. These are amazing books. I'm not saying because I wrote them. There are so many insights. You will have to read this 15 times, 20 times, and every time you will get new insight. But they're not very easy read. Okay, so they're not very easy to read on a Kindle. But if that works for you, fine. But I would therefore encourage you, if you can afford it, go for the paperback. And I'm working on a few other books, of course. One of them, holding title, is A History of Hindu Civilization, where I want to use the evidence of Saraswati and create sort of a template for last 100,000 plus years of Indian civilization. As we go back, there is not enough evidence, but as the evidence comes, it can get plugged in. And if the evidence asks us to modify certain things, we will do it. Okay, that is our Sanatana Vedic Dharma. Yaskacharya, who wrote Nirukta, the guide, giving a guidebook to understand Veda, he defines Sanatana as Sanatano Nitya Nutana. Sanatana is that which is capable, which is willing, and which enjoys this whole process of refreshing itself for the changing time, place, and circumstances. So we are not worried about changing something when the new evidence asks us to do that. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And so back to you, sir. And you can guide us how we want to do the question and answer.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. I request the participants who would like to interact, may raise their hand. The hand is provision is there at the right side of your name in the participation list. And I request you kindly make a abstract question to the related subject.
Yeah, very great point. So in a simple, polite way, I would say we are not, we are not, no, that's not correct. We are uninterested in your comments. Okay, so just please get to specific question that will allow us to cover a lot of questions. Okay, all right. So somebody is going to unmute that person, sir. You will see the hand and you will unmute that person.
Yes, I will do that. The hand is right. I will certainly. Before that, I would like to ask my doubt. What is the nature of astronomical evidence in the context of Mahabharata and in contrast with other evidences like archaeological, genetical? What is the significance of astronomical evidence alone?
Okay, very good. Great questions. The question is, what is the significance of astronomy evidence from Mahabharata for the dating? And how does that fare against evidence from other branches of science, such as um, archaeology and many others? Okay, if we have evidence coming from any scientific field, so and Anil Neneji, if you can just click on that arrow, like a hand arrow, if you can do it. Yeah, but I will come to that too.
Oh, sure.
And then our sir will take the question in a sequence. Astronomy, see, in fact, there are all these different fields of science. So just let me mention some. I may even have a slide, but I will not go there. So astronomy is where I started, but archaeology, oceanography, climatology, hydrology, geology, geophysics, geochemistry, morphodynamics of rivers, physical anthropology, genetics, seismology, linguistics, other literature like Ramayana, the context of Ramayana, Rigveda, on and on. Okay, I might have missed many others. They all can help us. But the specific thing about astronomy is this: it is only the astronomy evidence which, in principle, is capable of giving you the most precise and accurate dating, down to sometime a year, down to the month, down to the day, down that no other field of science will do that for you in case of our ancient events. So that is the importance of astronomy. Now the other fields, that will be a very long answer, so I'll not give that. There is a tons of evidence coming from other fields which supports that. And one important point I'll just say there is that we can talk of evidence, only that evidence which is available to us. We cannot talk of the evidence that doesn't exist or we have not found it. We may find it in future, but if it doesn't exist, we cannot talk about it. So that's a quick answer, sir, to your question.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Please, the participants can raise their hand if those who would like to interact.
Yeah, so if I see Anil Neneji, Gauri Pathiji, and Ram Gopal Susralaji, raising their hand. So you can pick one and unmute them. And we can go in a sequence.
Pardon?
Okay, let me see if I can unmute. Okay, so
okay.
See, for me to go through the list, like so. Okay, here I see. Okay, so you I cannot unmute him. Let's see, Anilji, you have to actually request there to unmute. So that's how I think it works. Okay, there we go.
That's right. Yes. Nilesh ji, I intently listened to your every word, but I found the whole speech very heavy for an ordinary person like me. Isn't there any way to invoke my interest in these things by simple short stories? Because everything what you said must be for very great scholars of these subjects. I'm not a scholar, but I want to know, yes, what is our past? I want to know how it happened. Isn't there any way you can talk to people like me, ordinary people like me at my level? That will be great if you could arrange that kind of your lecture series. I'm sure, yes, thousands of people will join.
Right. Okay. No, thank you. So great question. And I would say guilty as charged. Okay. So, so like, in terms of the level at I pitch. Now that is a challenge for any researcher. That is a challenge for any researcher. Whereas, and you are so, as I said, that you guilty as charged. While you think this is at a very high complex level, I would say this is as simple as one can make it for a 45-minute discussion. Okay, now I have taught 5-day long workshops, okay, on a Mahabharata. I have taught day-long workshops. Okay, but what you'll find, and this is not analogy to you, but see, when we need to do 5-day long workshop, which means there is a logistics involved, there has to be expenses, location, whatnot, then many people will not come. Okay, sometimes it's the not just the money issue, it's the scheduling issue and so on. So we try to do this, and again I would say any of my talk is basically like a movie trailer. In movie trailer, 1-minute trailer, they just make you curious enough that you go and watch the movie.
Yes,
Okay.
you have made me curious enough, definitely. That's why I would love to listen to, starting from, you are talking about PhD level, whereas I'm in
No,
play
fine,
group.
fine. Yeah, so Anilji, I'm going to tell you where the actual movie has been shown. Okay, so the movie is playing at the following theaters. On YouTube, if you go and type Nilesh, you're going to find, I don't know what the number is, 300 plus different talks. They go from 90 seconds to 90 minutes. Many of them are question answer sessions. So that's one type of movie thing going on. Okay, then I have written 3 books. I would encourage them people to take it. Again, as I said, even that you may find at a very high level initially. Many people, actually majority of them, read multiple times. I get emails, they said I read now for the 25th time, and they say every time they get a new insight. So there has to be some patience, there has to be a tapasya, there has to be some homework in understanding a little bit of astronomy, maybe not the first time. And then on my blog site, I have written 500 plus blog articles. They are very small articles. You can again search them or read through whatever sequence you want. And slowly it builds. I mean, nothing builds in a day, right?
Of course not.
So yeah, so think of this as a movie trailer. But
As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day.
correct. But you'll be surprised to know that, again, this is like Ramdas. I mean, you will understand Marathi. Ramdas Swami has written, that there is no correlation with what people's background is, what people's educations, what people's age, there is, he says, Thora lahana buddhi pasi, sagata kalena lokansi, adi upazale tayasi thora manati. He's saying in a sarcastic sense.
Yeah.
I know people, and when they actually, their mothers write to me, I find, is this really true? There are 7-year-old, there are 10-year-old, there are 16-year-olds, and of course then there are 92 years old, 86-year-old. One of my, somebody I knew, Ushata Joshi in Canada. I mean, she read, she just, you may know in Edmonton, so she just took
I know
those
her.
books. Yeah, read these books, and I was talking to her, 86-year-old lady, and no context of astronomy whatsoever, and she was asking such pertinent questions. It just, I mean, I was thrown out of my chair. So tapasya is required, and it will happen. Okay, so thank you. Guilty as charged.
Can I take your email address from Sanket Kulkarni and
yes, please, definitely, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Who somebody else? From the organizers, Guntur team. If you can please look at whose hand is up and can unmute them, that will help me. So I'm not looking for their names.
Gauripati, Mr. Gauripati.
Yeah, Gauripati ji, go ahead.
Good evening, Nilesh ji. I happen to hear, if not your 300, at least about 10, 15 of your lectures. But today's lecture is more of a motivational lecture rather than giving insight into actual, because most of the people who are sitting here are keen on the specific dates which you have mentioned earlier, like Bhishma's Nirvana or Bhishma's lying on Ampasaya or something like that. So to that extent, today is you are asking us to contact Patanjali and then Ramdev Baba to question the birth of that
Sushruta, yeah.
Sushruta and
Correct.
all that. Fine. In fact, I have not many questions because I am ardent follower of your speeches on YouTube.
Thank you.
So only thing is your books you are talking of, they are available on Amazon?
They are available on Amazon, of course. But if you are in India, you shouldn't even get from Amazon because they will cost you unnecessarily a lot of money. Like you if you are in India, it's a subbupublications.com or org, whatever, /Nilesh, author Nilesh Oak, or just go to Subbu Publications.
Okay.
And you can order online because
I'm from Hyderabad.
Yeah, so order from Subbu Publications online.
Thank you, Nilesh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay, if you can unmute Ram Gopal Susralaji.
Ram Gopal. Okay, I will do this, sir.
And folks, those of you who are savvy with Zoom, if you
Ram
can...
Gopal Susral.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Good evening, sir. I was just wondering, well, the concept of time during the Ramayana times, was it a little different? Because he says about Dashavarsha Sahasrani, right? He has ruled the Ramarajya for 10,000 years. Was the concept of time was different in those days, or they just said it like that?
Okay, Ram Gopalji asked a great question. You will hear in Ramayana, and so see, a question like that is relevant, although it's not about Mahabharata. It is relevant. Okay, you'll because that gets into aging, even how old was Bhishma, and all those questions come. In Ramayana, at one place, it is said after Rama returns from returns from Lanka, and now is ruling Ayodhya. He ruled for 10,000 years, or he ruled for 11,000 years. Some of those
11,000 years.
Yeah, word come.
Yes.
Also, if you go to Balakanda in that area or some other Kanda, but referring to the age of Dasharatha, one reference comes that he was a 60,000-year-old.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And how do we understand that? Now, some people, some people, they call themselves purist. I don't know what is the right word for them. They will say, if it is said in Ramayana 60,000 years, I will not accept anything else but that 60,000. Okay. And I say, good luck. Okay. So what do you do with something like this? Therefore, we need to understand what has happened sometime to our text. Many times some errors gets introduced. Okay. There is a interpolations, which is a very obvious error, but that's not what we should jump to right away. But there are translation error, transliteration error, transposition error, transcription errors, and sometimes they create these things. Other times, when these are the reason, when copying from somewhere, these errors happen. If you go to Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute's critical edition, whether for Mahabharata or Ramayana, it is nothing but that for one single verse, there will be a big long note, and it will say in this edition, the word is this edition, the word is this, and so on. This happens while copying. But coming back to the specific question you asked, many of our acharyas, okay, first thing we have to make a sense of it. That is what the point is. Okay. So now if somebody insists that it is 60,000 years or 10,000 years, I would say, hey, be my guest, good luck. But what I mean by good luck is go on the axis of a Shraddha. So if you have a Shraddha that it is indeed 10,000 or 60,000 years, fine. Now you have to use your intellect. Okay. The Samshaya is there. How can somebody be ruling for 10,000 years? So one has to start studying longevity, physical anthropology, genetics, all those sciences. And that jidnyasa. So one has to do tapasya. It took me 15 years for one shlok. Maybe somebody can do it in a weekend, or maybe a few lifetimes, and may able to solve it. Many of our acharyas has given very practical answers to that. He says it comes in a different context. That happens in a yuga also. like I don't want to digress, but the Yuga, that 432,000 or 4.32 million, had very specific astronomy reference. The numbers were turned into so big that the orbital periods of planets can be given in a most precise and accurate fashion. But somebody took that number and took it literally for time calculations of our history, and that's where the disaster happened. Same thing, the acharyas have, many acharyas has given good notation. For example, in our Shastra, we have many things. For example, Ahareva Samvatsara. Have you heard that, Ram Gopalji?
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
which,
I did.
yeah, which means one day, depending on the context, is to be, 1 year is to be seen as a one day.
1 day, correct.
So some people using that, and I actually go with that definition. Okay, but that is in my subjective conviction, which is to say, if somebody wants to fight on it, I'm not going to get into that fight because that doesn't help anyone.
Okay,
But
okay.
say Dr. P.V. Vartak, he took that 10,000 years, divided, turn it into 10,000 days based on Ahareva
Okay.
Samvatsara, and that comes to around 30 years.
That
It
should-
tells us that Rama was, by the time Rama came back, he was around 31 years.
Right.
That itself is also another vada, whether Rama was a 25 years or 16 years. And if somebody asks the question, I will answer that. So based on that, Rama lived for around 61 years based on that. And then,
Right.
and same thing we can now apply to Dasharatha possibly. I don't know if it can be done, but
Right.
we can find the answers like that. Yeah, so that's the answer.
The other thing I want to say is the Shanti Parva and the Anushasana Parva have got a lot of insights in Mahabharata. I mean, many people stop with the earlier Parvas. I mean, I agree that there are enough insights in the previous Parvas also, but the Shanti Parva and the Anushasana Parva, they have a lot of material in that.
I agree completely. Those people, I don't know who they are, but those people who do stop, more than likely they stop because they think, okay, they assume that Shanti
Right.
Parva, Anushasan Parva, and other Parvas are later interpolations. Okay. Now again, somebody says that. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I don't do that. Shanti Parva is added later." We have to pull the Hitchens razor and says, "Okay, based on what?" Right? If you've seen the Gandhi movie, it says, "Sir, you have been arrested," and the Gandhi used to say, "On what charge?" And the Gandhi movie,
Yes,
Similarly, you have to say based on what evidence? They will not have evidence. They will say something, but what I have shown, for example, just the dating of Mahabharata, and same thing applies to dating of Ramayana. So Balakanda, in case of Ramayana, some people say Balakanda and Uttarakanda are added later. See, the later may be somewhat relevant. Like when I wrote my book, I don't have a book here. So, initially I might have written 15 chapters, something like this. And then I said, this is not very clear. So I might have added one chapter. Right. But that doesn't mean like added later, meaning added after 2000 years. The astronomy evidence and other type of evidence too, but let me talk of astronomy evidence of the entire, right from the Adi Parva all the way to Anushasan Parva, Ashwamedha Parva, Ashramavasika Parva, Mausala Parva, all is so consistent that it will take you to 5561 BC. In case of Ramayana, all the evidence of not only Balakanda, but also the Uttarakanda, and of course all the Kanda in between, will consistently, everything, season, everything will take you to 13 millennium BCE, 12,209 BCE. So that itself is a proof that they are not interpolated. There can be some sections that could be interpolated. There could be some verses that get this twisting and turning because of copying errors and whatnot. Yes.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, who wants to go next? And guys, if you are a Zoom savvy, please raise the hand because that will be easy for the organizers to see if you have a question.
Sir, if anyone would like to interact, please raise the hand so that I will call.
Yeah, there were some few hands.
There is one chart, sir, from Gotet Sivakrishna. He is asking, can your research tells us the birthday of Lord Rama and Krishna? That is his question.
Yeah, great question. So can my research work tell the birthday of Rama and Krishna? In case of Rama, Krishna's actual day is not in my memory right now, but in case of Rama, It's 29th November 12,240 BCE, measured on a Julian calendar scale. Okay, using the Julian calendar as a reference calendar. 29 November 12,240 BCE. Now understand, it's a Chaitra Shukla Navami. Every year it will not come on the same 29 November. Everyone knows that. So that change will be there. In case of Krishna, now the reason I don't remember the name, because Krishna's birth date had to be drawn with different references beyond Mahabharata, not just Mahabharata. I had to go to Harivamsha also, and some other things. But Mahabharata plus Harivamsha definitely tells you that Krishna, there are some, yeah, so Krishna's birth year is 5626 BCE. Okay, and of course the Shravan Krishna Vadya Ashtami, that will be the day, but I don't exactly recall what that day is. It will come around like June or somewhere there, based on a Julian calendar. But do not try to connect the June of our times. It has nothing to do with it. Okay, it is just some reference calendar that we have to use. And the reason we have to use other calendar is because someone somewhere in our tradition gave up the use of a solar calendar. Otherwise, solar calendar exists. Taittiriya Samhita talks about it. And on that point, I want to quickly mention, especially if you are on, for now, if you are on a Twitter, because that is the only place we are doing it. Some of you may have heard this Panchang. Actually, it becomes a reference Panchang across India. Like it is used by, referred to by Indian government. It is referred to by many state governments. It's called Date Panchang. It is published from Solapur in Maharashtra. And so we connected with them, and it took me 8 years of tapasya, guys, okay, to contact the Panchanga makers and get them on board to be convinced of my dating. And now in this last, after 8 years, 2012, I started doing this. Now we started something called Bharata Dinadarshika, which also has, besides the Vikrama Samvat, besides Shalivan Samvat, we also have a Mahabharata Samvat. So right now it's a Mahabharata Samvat 7581. Okay. So it gets updated every day, 5:30 India time in the morning on Twitter. If you just go to the handle @Date Panchang. And then many people who don't know that last name Date, it gets translated as a DATE. So they said, oh, wow, date Panchang. No, it's their last name. All right. Anyone has any other question?
Yes,
Okay, I see.
I had a doubt in this calendar aspect. How to come out from a confused state believing from our astronomical validity to the present following Gregorian calendar?
Okay. And with the question, so your question is how to come out of the Gregorian calendar, the use of a Gregorian calendar, right? Yeah. Okay. First thing, I don't know whether we need to come out of it. Just I will start there. Second, if we truly, not you, I mean, if we as a civilization truly feel that we should come out of it, it will take enormous tapasya, enormous hard work. Okay. Right now, and do we need to come out of it? I mean, I don't have any very strong opinion on it, because we should, I mean, there are many things to do. We should set the priority. Okay. And in sense of priority, I wouldn't say it's a number 1 or number 2 or number 3. No, definitely not. But it is worth doing it. What has happened is, see, let's talk about the Gregorian calendar. Yeah, sorry, I'll come to you. Okay. So you can add to that. The Gregorian calendar, many people think, oh, it's totally bad and something like that. Guys, that is not true. As a purely solar calendar, it is not a bad calendar. Okay, in terms of matching the solstices, matching the equinoxes, it does a decent job. It is not connected with the background astronomy system, background nakshatra system, it is not connected. But in terms of the season, it does a good job. Sorry, you wanted to say something, sir?
When we are following this Gregorian calendar, there is confusion that is Christian mythological confusion is there. For that reason, how it has to take?
It is definitely there, because and that was the what you can say, the genius of British.
Because okay? they say it has started only 4004 BC.
Correct. Yeah, so they I mean, they want us to use it. So if you say, when were you born, and I have to say my 1970 whatever it is, 1970 what, from the time of Jesus' birth, right? So it has that. And therefore, see, in the America, the whole Jewish academic lobby worked on this, and they said we will not use AD and BC. So they made some slight modification because still the system is in vogue. But they use BCE and CE, like a common era and before common era, as opposed to before Christ and Anno Domini, the year of our Lord or something like this. So they try to take away the religious aspect. That's a different issue. It's a very important issue for India, especially with the conversion nonsense that is going on and so on. So it's very important. But I would say changing a calendar is definitely one thing worth doing. It will take a lot of tapasya, and just from that perspective, as a priority, I will not put it there. We need to do something. We need to do a lot of things before even we get to changing it. Okay, because it's there everywhere. It's seeping into our system. So we need a calendar, which is what my effort is. Which is my effort to do the Bharata Dinadarshika. If you are on a Twitter, do go at Date Panchang, DATE Panchang, and do follow that handle. It's a very small effort right now. There is an effort to do the application, develop the app, and so on. But as you know, everything needs expertise, everything needs time, resources, money, and this is just, I mean, I'm not the only one. There are a few other people working with me on that one. But we are basically using our own resources. We don't go and ask anyone, so that's what it is.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Abhijit Kumar Nagar.
Yeah, hey, hi.
Yeah, and Sheshadri ji, we will come to you. Sheshadri Rajgopalan ji will come to you. Yeah,
yeah. Okay, sir. We'll call one by one.
Yeah.
Certainly we'll take.
Sure.
Please go ahead, sir. Abhijit.
Yeah, thank you for this wonderful session. I just have one query. How old Bhishma Pitama must have been when he left for Vaikuntha?
Okay, we can only estimate. There is not like an exact number, and the estimation comes to around 140 or 140 plus.
So by that logic, whatever we have heard was that Lord Krishna was 125 years old when he left abroad.
Okay, so but don't confuse the two questions. Hold on. So don't confuse the two questions. So first, let me answer that. So in case of Bhishmacharya, we can only estimate, and it comes to around 140 plus. Okay, so leave that aside. Now you can come and ask about Krishna.
Okay, the reason is because what we were explained was that Krishna died when he was 125 years old at the time of his death.
Right. So let me stop you there. So correct. In Bhagavad Puran, there is one reference where it says Krishna was 125 years old. Right. I would encourage you, and not you and others also, to go to my blog and type Krishna, or you should get it. Sure. So when I read that, I wrote it down. I wrote one blog saying Krishna appears to be 125 years. The blog may be 10-year-old, Right. Then I started, see, this is what I talk about, those three axes, the Shraddha and Samshaya and then Jidnyasa. Then I started studying, and then I found some additional references where it appeared that 116 sounds more logical, more appropriate based on evidence than 125. So actually I wrote second blog, and that I deliberately keep these blogs. So it's not like I want to remove and say, hey, no, I always have the correct answer. No, I'm we are all searching in an iterative fashion. So there are 116. What my latest research shows is this, and I'll quickly give you an answer to that. That Krishna more than likely was around 101 year old for his total lifespan. Okay, how do I arrive at that? Okay, so I'll tell you this, because you should always ask, what is your evidence? How did you come to that? This is also a bit of interpretation, and I'll tell you what that interpretation is. So 3 steps. One is, as a relative age, we know this, that Yudhishthir and Bhim were elder to Krishna and Arjuna, and Nakul and Sahadev were younger to Krishna and Arjuna. How do we know that? When Krishna comes to meet them, and this will happen 3-4 times in a whole Mahabharata narration, but one narration is very clearly explained, that when Krishna comes to meet Pandavas, he does namaskar, like the what you call pranam, to Yudhishthir. He does pranam. Now I don't know how many people knew that. Okay, then he does pranam to Bhima. He gives a alingan, the hug, to Arjun. And Nakul and Sahadev do pranam to Krishna. You follow? So what it is telling us is that, the relative ages of those 5 people and Krishna. So Krishna is almost the same age as Arjun. Now let's talk about Arjuna's statement. Just before the war, Arjun says that I am carrying this Gandiv for 65 years. And actually, based on that, many people have come to these other numbers. So if he's carrying for 65 years, and Arjuna was not carrying the Dhanusha, that Gandiva Dhanusha from day one. In fact, he received it during the Khanda one, the burning of a Khanda one. That's when he received it. He was already much elder. Okay, so how do we understand 65? So if you take his age before plus 65 plus 36 years, then actually he goes close to 125. And that is how more than likely Bhagavatkar, the writers of Bhagavata, estimated Krishna's age to be 125. And even that's not exactly correct. But we have to understand the statement of Arjuna that he's carrying this Gandiva for 65 years in this fashion. This is my interpretation, and I'm telling it for your analysis. Suppose some of you may be retired, so some of you are say retired at age 58, 60, 65, something like this. And suppose you are a mechanical engineer and you're talking to somebody and somebody says, okay, so, hey, what about this air conditioner? And you say, let me tell you about this air conditioner. And you might say, you are 65-year-old. You say, you know what? I'm doing mechanical engineering for last 65 years. Would you say that? There's very possibility you may say that. For 65 years, I'm doing mechanical engineering. In reality, you're not doing for 65 years. First 20 years, you did not know about mechanical engineering. But you might say that as a figure of speech. My interpretation is that Arjuna is saying this as a figure of speech when he says, I'm holding this for 65 years. So let's take that. That means Arjuna was around 65 years old at the time of Mahabharata war. And actually, if you do that, everything starts falling in place. So Arjuna is 65, Krishna is 65. Then you go to what is that? Yudhishthir and slightly couple of years elder. Nakul Sahadev younger. We have a reference to Drona as being 85 years old at the time of war in Mahabharata text. So now they start fitting. So if you take 65 plus 36, because after 36 years, Dwarka was flooded and Krishna was gone at that time. Okay. So 65 plus 36, it takes you to that 101. That is how I estimated the longevity or the time duration of Krishna.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Subramanian Rajagopal, Seshadri Rajagopalan.
Yes, thank you for giving me a chance. Sir, you gave two processes of authentication of Mahabharata. One is the trajectory of Arundhati Vasishta. Second is Bhishma Nirvana. Are there any more processes which we can sort of study and understand and authenticate Mahabharata further?
Yeah. Okay. So just within the astronomy, there are 300 different data points. Okay, some data points like Arundhati Vasishta gives you an interval, Bhishma Nirvana gives you an interval. Knowing the tithi, like that's where we need a Vijnana Buddhi. Vijnana Buddhi has a steps like this: Nishchaya, like what's your objective. Okay, then it says Pruthakkaran, extract the evidence. Okay, once you define the theory, Pruthakkaran, Vargikaran. Okay, then you have to do the Anukram, Sahacharya. Okay, these are different ways of mixing and matching, like the way we make our dishes, right? Cooking, right? Different spices we mix. So sometimes we take one individual piece of evidence like Arundhati Vasishta, it gives us an interval. In case of Bhishma Nirvana, just the 92 days, what it does, just the pure 92 days, it tells you that every other Mahabharata researcher is wrong and there is a chance that I could be right. It doesn't tell that I am right, just that 92. Okay. But when I take that 92 combined, then combine with something else, then it says, this is the interval. So it is a, what you call, a complex like a TRIZ. If you have heard the Russian technique called TRIZ, T-R-I-Z, a complex problem solving technique. That's how it is. So in astronomy, yes, that is one. But to answer your question, now if you go to oceanography, I'll just take one as an example. So if I am claiming Mahabharata war happened in 5561 BCE, then Mahabharata text tells us that the Dwarka was flooded and destroyed 36 years after the Mahabharata war. So 5561 BCE plus 36 gives me 5525 BCE. And in that year or around that time, Dwarka was flooded. Now I can ask the question, do I have evidence that can show some flooding activity, something unique for on the west coast, say Dwarka, where Dwarka is. And if you do that, now this is not going to happen with just magic Google search. No, it won't happen, But so I'm just studying. So for example, I have 100, 200 publications which support that. Now, some of them are, one has to be deep into oceanography to understand it. But I'll tell you quickly 3 references. Okay, this is a work of Paul Blanchard, who was also at the same university in Canada in geology doing his PhD when I was doing my master's. I didn't know him that time, of course. What he has shown in the Caribbean, the West Indies area, in 7 different locations, they have done this research where there was a sudden surge in the water level, 6.5 meters plus minus 2.5 meters. Sudden, literally like a instantaneous, you can say. And statistically, they're 5600 BCE plus minus 100 years. Okay, this is a Paul Blanchard paper. So there was a sudden water level rise of 5.6 meters. I mean, we're talking 15 feet, okay, and could be plus minus 2 point in 5600 BCE plus minus 130 years, which falls into 5525. If you go to Turkey, the Black Sea that you see, the Black Sea was not there as a black saltwater sea. It was a sweetwater lake and much, much smaller. We have evidence. This is a work of Ryan and Pittman, 2 great geologists from Columbia University, New York. They published a book. I forgot the name now, but you can find it. 1998. Again, I came to know of this book from a American prisoner. He in prison he read my book, and he also had read that book, and he put 2 and 2 together. How nice, in a prison in Tennessee. So he wrote me from the prison. I mean, even in the photo he sent, he's wearing that prison dress. Yeah, uniform, right? And so what that shows is that suddenly there was a instantaneous rise in the ocean. Atlantic water came to Mediterranean came to Aegean Sea, came to the Sea of Marmara. And if you have been to Istanbul, like through the Bosphorus channel, it broke through that and started pouring the salt water on the other side, the northern side. And instantaneously, what we call Black Sea today, from a sweet lake, it became a salty water lake. And the timing of that, just listen, 50 BCE, plus minus 30 plus years, plus minus 40 years. This is Ryan and Pittman's work. They have published a book on this. And they have not, these both people have nothing to do with Mahabharata or Ramayana or anything. They don't even necessarily know. If you come to the west coast of Dwarka, there are 30 plus studies, 30 plus 40, 50 years of research. In the 6th millennium, right in the middle of 6th millennium, which is 25 BCE, there is a sudden rise of 15 meters water level rise in the Arabian Sea. And then in the next millennium, another 8 meters, the net of 23 meters. And the water was up there until 2000 BC, and only then it started going down. There is no other flood from, say, 5000 BC to 2000 BC. So anyone claiming Mahabharata war during that, they have a problem. So they don't talk of this evidence. Okay, there is no flooding. If there is anything, the water is going down.
Interesting. Thank you. So I was just exploring the possibility of.
But I gave you just one. I just spend time and give you evidence. But you see some other presentation. I talk of 10 plus different disciplines, 15 different disciplines, and there is evidence from each of these.
Yeah,
genetic evidence is there and so on. Yeah, let's go to the next question.
I will explore. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, sir. I see few people hands up, like Hema, Yella Pragada, and Tejasvi Sainath. I see their hands up. Hema ji, go ahead.
Namaste, Nilesh ji. A fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. Coincidentally, I was speaking to my 7-year-old about Mahabharata, and then Vidula ji kind of said, "Oh, Hema, log on to this one. You will be interested." And I thought that was such a big coincidence. I was just going to ask you one thing, like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilization, are there any evidences of Mahabharata in Harappa and Mohenjo-daro? Because it would have happened, according to your datings, after Mahabharata. Yes. So have we got anything?
That is correct. Okay, so do we have evidence? Okay, here are some of our challenges, and then I'll tell you what evidence we do have. We have not decisively deciphered the IVC script, right? We are seeing the symbols and we don't know exactly what they are. So that is one limitation. Then from an archaeology perspective, of course, we see the signs for yoga, the way the agriculture was produced, and so that tells us about the continuity of our civilization. If you look at Rakigadi and those places, their dating definitely takes us to Mahabharata times, like 5000 BC and 7000 BC, Mehergarh in Balochistan. So as far as were there some people, yeah, that we know that. In fact, that we know that from much other evidence. Like if you go to Narmada evidence, Bhimbetaka, we have evidence going back to 100,000 years. The Narmada man, Narmada woman, 250,000, and there's so much evidence. So as far as the presence goes, yes, but I know what exactly you're asking. Is there some connection to like specifically some aspect of Mahabharata that's telling us? Language point, we don't know, and I'm going to actually come and tell you something else in a minute. So because it's not deciphered, we don't know. So there is a continuation of civilization, we know, but any specific reference to Mahabharata? No, actually. So the question comes now, in Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, we have found archaeological objects. And how do we connect the archaeological objects to Mahabharata dating? It's a tough job. I mean, first thing, we need to find some descriptions of objects in Mahabharata text that possibly we can match with what we have found in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. But even if we find such objects, that is not a guarantee that they are from a Mahabharata times. So yes, they are actually, the Harappa, Mohenjo-daro are definitely from, based on my timeline, they are after that. Now let me tell you what little evidence that we have. One of my good friend, again, these people really do working on their own dime. So if you consider her financial situation, very tough situation. She's on the west coast of America, Sue Sullivan, okay? Just on her own interest, she did the research on Harappa civilization. There are 100 plus researchers again trying to decipher Harappa script. I would not say that what she has done is the last word, but I will say that out of 100 plus different efforts, the work of Sue Sullivan is the best, and the best by a huge margin from whoever that second person is, who has done some progress. What she has found based on her limited research, there are some 400 signs into the Harappa script, and she has deciphered around 100. But based on that, we can pluck some words, and actually the words emerge like a naman. But one word, so she gave me many words that emerged out of it, a very consistent way of drawing the words. Virya, like a veer, like a warrior. Those words come out. Again, I'm not saying therefore they relate to Mahabharata. But one word that also came, and that's when I was convinced, I would say. That word was Ashwamedha Virya, or Ashwamedha Veer, so to say. And that convinced me that there is some substance in this. This happened more than 10 years ago. Actually, in one Saraswati International Conference, I presented her work. See, because she cannot even, because of her restrictions, she cannot travel. I mean, most of our researchers, you have to understand, we somehow find a way to work and do the research, or we consume our savings. That's what I am doing for last few years. And something just tells us, some people will consider that to be a very careless thing, but something internally tells us we have to do it. So we do it. But her condition is very tough. I mean, I invited her to a few conferences, and she cannot come, and I don't have necessarily fundings to do all that. I mean, so anyway, so there are these issues, but her work, if you go to Facebook, Indus Valley Script, I think, Indus Valley Script, Indus Script Dictionary. Try this out on a Google also, but also the, Facebook. Also, if you type like Nilesh Oak, and I don't know what are the other keywords, Nilesh Oak, Indus Valley, Indus Script, you may find one talk. It's not well recorded from that conference. But the short story, what she found, her initial findings, that the Harappa script appears to be Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Apabhramsha. Like, like Lakshman becomes Lakhan, something like that. There are actually South Indian words too, like for Selvam. Like Selvam is a Andhra Pradesh word, is it not? I mean, I'm not a language.
It's a Tamil one.
Yeah. So yeah. She does find the word Selvam or something related to that also. So basically Bruhan India, the greater India is there into those words, but it's a preliminary studies, and more research is required. There are some other evidence, but I already gave a long answer, so I will not do that. But from astronomy perspective, you can see there is, if you remember that Pashupati shield, Pashupati stela, or whatever you want to call it, with a tiger and elephant and whatever, rhinoceros, and that is astronomy stela, by the way. You can, and that actually perfectly matches for that 2500 3000 BC. And then the Mahabharata has a reference that will take you another 3000 years before that. But that's a long answer. That will be further long answer, so I will not give it today.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tejas, I see Tejasvi Sainath.
Namaskaram, Nilesh.
You can go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Namaskaram, Nilesh.
Namaskaram.
I have been following your talks from plastic surgery. Once you explained about the plastic surgery, how it traveled to European countries, and then came back here. So from then I've been following your work, sir, about the dating back of Mahabharata and Ramayana also. I've been following it in Sangam talks, sir. My simple question is, sir, when can we expect your works in a regular school history books, sir? My intention is your work will inspire many children to get into Indology and intern to Dharma. So is there anything we can do at ground? As a normal youngster, I just wanted to know that, so that you have done some phenomenal work in this. Whenever I come across any people also, all the rational people, I intentionally tickle the youth people to go into the Nilesh talks, and I've been interacted with you on a couple of, in Facebook also I have interacted with you.
Okay.
So my very, always I've been dreaming about that, your work in our history.
Okay, so thank you, Tejasvi ji, for being the stalker. That I was saying, who is that person? No, I'm saying jokingly. So thank you for being the stalker. Okay, following me everywhere. So you are doing it. So actually, what you just described is what every Indian needs to do. Okay, every Indian needs to do. Now, many people think, "Arey, I'm a simple guy. What am I going to do?" Okay, it doesn't matter. The Bhagavad-Gita talks of Swadharma. Swadharma is so obvious, like sun, what is Swadharma of a sun? Now, for sun is a lucky one, right? To do nothing in a way, just not even a move. It's the earth that moves, and a lot of things happens. That is that karma sannyasa, a wonderful example of karma sannyasa. That's why Bhagavad-Gita refers to, that Surya, from sun it came to Ikshvaku and all that. That's a different subject. But we have to do everything in small ways. And how will we get into some textbooks, mainstream? Every single person. So the way what you are doing, Tejasvi ji, everyone who is listening to here must do it. But also ask everyone in their family, all their friend circles, and everyone to do it at the cost of being ridiculed. I mean, if you think you're going to say this and therefore you'll be praised, no, that won't happen. I mean, I'm sure if I ask you, you'll share your experiences. People will call you nerds. They will say, don't follow that nerd being me, or all kinds of things will happen. So we have to develop that thick skin. And where does that come from? That comes from that Shraddha, intellect, integrity, okay, energy and intellect, I mean, that's where it comes from. When that happens, and there are many other ways, I'm not saying this is the only way, then it will get into textbooks. It should actually, many people should write about it. Those people who are novelists, they simple, wonderful at writing novels, they may not be technically expert in this area. I'm saying when you write a novel, especially if you write a historical novel, take my dates, impregnate those dates into those. And actually people are already doing it, by the way, and I'm glad, but it needs to happen 100-fold. Then there will be, I mean, through this social media, if we all start talking, then the politicians will listen. They need votes, right? It doesn't matter which party, all parties would listen. Okay, that's how things happen in different places. So that's just my 2 cents. But if anyone has some additional ideas, then they should follow that. They should take a leadership on it, not always. So what you're doing, so just start a moment. Hey, how can we get this into a textbook, and people will laugh at you. Fine, when 15 years, when I was working on Arundhati, I used to still tell people as a social commitment, hey, this is what I want to find out. And they used to laugh at me, and that didn't bother me. Now I laugh at them. No, I'm just kidding. So good. Thank you.
Sure, sir.
Sir, there is one message from Magatti Venugopal. He is asking you, do you
Yeah, go
have
ahead.
any research on the way Kauravas were born, please?
Okay, so let's so how the Kauravas were born. Okay, and I would say I in my last slide there on the insights, I said I forgot what I wrote there, but say like a Parthenogenesis. I talked about it. Why just Kaurava? Think of all the how the Pandavas were born, right? I mean, with Kunti, it's in a somewhat mysterious situation, right? So she is invoking the specific word that she has received, and she is doing it. Same thing with Kauravas, like Vyasa or whoever took the Gandhari's Garbha and split it into 100 different parts, and that's how it is. It's not limited to that. What about the Drona and Droni? Okay, they are also born like that. That's why the name Drona, like a test tube baby. I don't know if you use the word Drona. In Maharashtra, we use the word Drona is made out of leaf, like a bowl made out of leaf to take a liquid thing like sambar and whatnot. That's called Drona. I mean, so it comes from Sanskrit, obviously. Same thing with Draupadi and Drishtadyumna. They have also come out of a yajna. So in one place we hear they came from a mantra to a specific deity. Other places this garbha is split and put it into 100 pots. Another place of pots of another kind, different method, Dronacharya. Another times they came from a yajna. Now, what does that mean? We don't know that. I mean, all we are left with is some two-line descriptions. Now, if you read a novel, sometimes it is like that, right? If you read a Dan Brown novel, right? And then whoever the professor, he took a flight from Boston, overnight flight to London. That is given. The flight equipment number is not given. Which aircraft engines, G90 or G76, G80, that's not described. Who was the pilot, which path they flew, not is given. Because it's not relevant to that, right? It is not relevant to that. Or it's called narrative fallacy. You have to cut many things, just give few. So we have to research, and that's where again I'll give you that 3 axis. So if you have a Shraddha that if they said something existed, that 100 Kauravas or something like this, I will tell you the whole test tube baby experiments, if you go and try to follow their biographies or how they came to even that thought, you will be surprised to know. I have not done this research. So somebody feeling curious enough should take that as a project. You'll be amazed to know that I can assure you they would have found inspiration from place like Mahabharata. Why I can assure you that? I don't know the answer. I can be wrong. But this is my experience. If every time I find something fascinating, I find that archetype in Ramayana and Mahabharata, immediately I make a conjecture in my mind, theory, that, hey, this might have to do with the Mahabharata. They might have got this from Mahabharata. When I watched the Star Wars first time, and I didn't know who Lucas was and whatnot. But then I said, hey, this is like, okay, I'm seeing somewhere here. And I'll give you one quick example of that. I'm hearing something. It's somehow connecting. And then I started reading about the Lucas and then Joseph Campbell. And then these all dots came together and connected into the picture. The inspiration came from there. Okay. I mean, you will see this. That happens to me time and time again. Like if I see something, if I just follow the trail, it will take me to India. Like how many of you in the corporate world know the Myers-Briggs? Myers-Briggs, or DISC, like the 4 types of personalities and how you behave and so on and so forth. If you follow that trail, the Myers and Briggs 2 ladies and whatnot in Massachusetts or USA, if you follow that trail, it will take you through Jung, Carl Jung, all the way to India. I can show you the frameworks from Bhagavad-Gita who will do this 4 split framework. Okay, now it is too late for us to feel pat on our back and saying, oh, our great Grantha has everything. We have to use our Shraddha and intellect and curiosity, energy to take these insights and turn them into useful functions, and then get Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, Artha also. See if we can get Artha out of this. Sorry, I digress, but let's go back.
Sir, there is another gentleman, Sri Vayan Rao Garu.
Yeah, you have to unmute him. Vayan Rao. Yeah.
Unmute yourself, sir. Okay. Please ask yourself. Sri Vayan Rao Garu. We are
Okay,
unable to
maybe
hear your voice, sir.
you may be okay. Vaindrao Garu, we cannot hear you. If you are not there, we can move on to the next person. Or somebody is using Vaindrao Garu's phone.
Yeah. Okay. I think
Done?
yeah.
Okay, that's a good.
If you permit me, I will before we end. I had one other doubt. Let me.
Yeah. And before you ask the question, I will say, and so thank you very much, all of you, for listening to it. If you don't have a question, that means two possibilities, and these are good possibilities. One is not that good. It means I did not tell you anything new. Okay, if you don't have a question, that means I did not tell you anything new. Otherwise, why would you have a question? Or the second possibility is you did not understand anything I said. Okay, I'm just saying on a joking note there. All right, back to you, sir. You can ask a question and then we can conclude.
There is another point. Is also there is a your narration is not giving any chance to ask you. Otherwise, that is obviously.
Please go ahead.
Okay, sir. What is the symbolic significance of Bhagavan Sri Krishna giving Gita Upadesha in the middle of the battlefield?
Okay, can you repeat the question? What is the significance?
What is the significance of Bhagavan, symbolic significance of Bhagavan Sri Krishna giving Gita Upadesha in the middle of the battlefield?
Okay. All right. So what is the significance of Bhagavan Krishna giving the Gitopadesh on the middle of the battlefield? Okay. I'm going to give you my 2 cents. There are many great acharyas. They will have a lot more better answer to this. As I said, the focus, the emphasis of Mahabharata is on the karma, on the duty, doing the duty. Okay. And to emphasize, so here, if you look at the situation, the war is not a very pleasant scenario. And this is actually a war among the family factions. So that is even a tougher situation. And that is the dilemma that Arjun has. And so even when we have a situations like this, what we go after is we go after a dharma, we go after a satya. So I'll take a bit digression. What happens is with a satya, so yes, we understand, all of us understand that satya is important. We don't want anyone to cheat us. Like even a thief does not want, although he or she may cheat others, he does not want anyone else to cheat the thief, himself. Okay, so we understand the importance of a satya. Having said that, everyday life, there are some areas like politics or business, or like people say there are these verses, right? Or when you are getting married, so for example, or you are courting, and the girl says, do you find me beautiful? And if you give a wrong answer, that's the end of your relationship there, right? Okay, so people think it's okay to twist the truth a little bit there in a politics, okay, or while telling a joke, or if the ultimate outcome is going to be good for the paramartha, it is okay to do. And so these are all subtle problems. In the sense, there is no one clear answer. And that is the actually whole theme, not just of Bhagavad-Gita, but of the whole Mahabharata. We find many instances when we are not happy with what the characters of Mahabharata did, what Bhishma did during the Draupadi Vastraharan, what Drona did during Draupadi Vastraharan, what different ways they had to do, how the Abhimanyu was killed, and how the Karna was killed, and how Drona was killed, how Bhishma was killed. We always have this problem. The reason is the real life is never black and white, is never straightforward. Okay, so you see that in workplace. Like if you have done, say, business school, MBA, if you have done, we have case studies. And when they study case studies, they are not looking for one particular answer and that is a correct answer. They say you can answer 10 different ways, but if you give your logic good justification, you still get full marks, because you don't know the final outcome. Again, I'm coming back to this. So that's what actually, that same theme of Mahabharata you find in Bhagavad Gita also. So what is the purpose of it? Just like we say Ganga, river Ganga, right from Gangotri all the way it meets the Bay of Bengal, it's all pure, all pavitra. But still, when we look at Varanasi, when we look at Prayagraj, what is that? I don't remember the places, but the other places, Haridwar and so on. those places are more important. Similarly, if you look at the Mahabharata, and Vyasa is telling us exactly why he's doing it. Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradeepa, he's putting that torch of knowledge for the benefit of us. But are there some places where Vyasadeva has gone into a perfect samadhi, where, the Saraswati is dancing on his tongue or in his writing? There are these places, and the best place I would say is the Bhagavad-Gita. So if there is any place where Vyasa's, whatever he wants to convey through this Purva Vruttam, through the actual history, what has happened, and Vyasa, Vyasa's name is also Krishna. Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Draupadi is also Krishna, and Krishna is also Krishna. They are that much Advaita is there among them. And so, they can just, it's very difficult. Even Arjuna, right? Pandavanam Dhananjaya, in a Vibhuti Yoga, Krishna says, among the Pandavas, I am you. It is that much of a closing together. And through that, it has come for motivating us on every front and motivating us the posterity. But that is just my answer. You'll get many other answers, better answers, greater answers from our other acharyas who have done a lot more tapasya on the Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, should we conclude then?
Okay, we'll close it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all.
Before closing, I would like to express we are deeply grateful for telling us the qualities that we need to have to study Mahabharata, Shraddha, Samasya, Jnana. We are grateful to Nilesh ji for informing us that some of these qualities should be deployed with mathematical precision. While referring to context of chronology, Nilesh ji demonstrated the utility of interdisciplinary approach to understand the timeline of Hindu civilization. In the process of the presenter has shown us the usefulness of deploying astronomy to understand the timeline of Mahabharata. Sir, your visual presentation made it easy to understand complex issue. Your presentation once again demonstrated the importance of sustained hard work to contest Western narratives. Thank you very much. Thank you all the participants. Very nice to take your section. Thank you, sir. Once again, Dhanyavad.
Thank you all.
Namaste.
Thank you.